What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday, and today we are going to be talking about something that I've wanted to touch on for a little bit now that came up in a discussion on Patreon on a show called Shop Talk on there, where we have a lot of in-depth discussions regarding third party, and it's about momentum. Momentum in terms of marketing, momentum in terms of rollout, momentum in terms of the success of any product or project, especially when they're kind of all in line or in tune with one another. It does have an impact, I believe. It's more of a thought-provoking question, or at least it's supposed to be. So I'm very interested in what you guys think about it, if you guys think it has an impact. It's just something that kind of came up in a conversation that I think is worth kind of pulling apart a little bit like monkey bread, you know what I mean? But before we do that, we do have to do a little bit of housekeeping. Last week on the Verses, like every time I do this, somebody has a better idea of how to do it. I can't cater to everybody, man. Like my suggestion is just make your own Verses video. I try to kind of continue to manipulate it and mess with it to try to mainline it or get it to be a little bit more clear, or sometimes I see things and I'm like, oh, that should probably be a category or whatever. I add it in, but I can't cater to everybody's wants and needs. I'm trying to just do something the best I can. In terms of the train bot video, a lot of people said that it was the worst of the bunch. I would concur. I think I say that in the final thoughts. I just saw that comment a lot, so I was like, I hope I did mention that. I think it's easily the worst of the four. The good news is that the combine mode, which is what I'm looking for it to do, is probably the most successful of all three modes. Oh, and the Alpha Tryon, a lot of people said or thought that like they really were chomping for a bit at an MP. I just found that interesting. Not that I don't want it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't really care. Like, I wouldn't mind it, but it's not a character that I'm chomping at the bit for. But I just found it interesting how many people did want an MP Alpha Tryon. I hope that some of these companies are looking in those comments, because it seemed like it was a very, very popular idea. So it's not necessarily something I got to clean up, but something that is of worth noting. I have one other thing that I need to talk about. For those that know or don't know, I got some friends over at the Realm of Collectors. Some very close friends, including Chris Pinkerton, if you're nasty, co-host of Nerd Rage Radio. And they asked me if I could forward some information on to you. The Realm of Collectors have pre-orders open for their Rock Box. It's being tied in with BotCon in August. The Rock Box is an annual box of swag curated for the ROC. This year they are putting together a great selection of items. It's a secret what's in the box, but I can tell you there will be a new design t-shirt, but there's plenty of other stuff, and they assure you it will not disappoint. The Rock Box is available to order at realmofcollectors.com for a limited time. The Realm has given me exclusive discount code for you to save 5%. That's all they could afford, margins and all. Use code Skullface5 at checkout to save your 5%. This is a pre-order with delivery, either in person at BotCon in Nashville or shipped to you shortly thereafter. Like my man Pinkerton says, roll your change, pawn your jewelry, it's Rock Box season. And he probably adds a y'all in there, Alabama and whatnot. But yeah, I happen to know what's in there. I'm privy to it. I won't give it away. I will say that I bought one. And I also say I didn't get the 5% bloody discount, so that's a bunch of bull too, yes me. But it's not about me today. It's about forwarding those savings on to you. So let's talk about momentum and what we mean by, let's define it first of all. So basically when a company has an idea to do something, right? Like they're going to do a line, or they're going to take an angle on something that's not a single bot kind of idea, right? So let's break that down. Jazz is a single bot idea. He exists pretty much just as Jazz. However, Weirdwolf is not, because when you think of Weirdwolf, you think of Chomp, and you think of Chomp. You think of Skullcruncher, and you think of Nightbeat, Wing Knight, whatever his name is, the bat one. Mind Wipe, something like that. Dracula. So it's one reveal, it's one purchase, but the idea is that it's going to pull you into more. And that's a more maybe estranged. The Dinobots would be another example, right? Combiners would be another example, right? And we've seen over the years, companies have different ways of marketing that to varying degrees of success. The one that always stands out in my mind is the way that Warbitron did it with their Bruticus. If you recall, when they put out images of their team, they showed everything all at once. Combine mode, alt mode, robot mode, they showed everything. They showed their cards. Now, they weren't color images. They were all kind of prototypes, 3D print. But the sculpts and sort of details and stuff were all there. It was in the game. And through the years, we've had a lot of companies kind of like uppercut the system, right? In a good way. As soon as kind of Fans Toys built some momentum after Slag, you kind of saw the ball rolling with the rest of their Dinobots. Toy World or Zeta, whatever you want to call them, with their Constructicons were very, very consistent, very prolific. But I do think it's a situation where it has to be planned out. It has to be thought out, and it has to be sort of pragmatically possible, logistically possible. When you start one of these things to kind of not only be working on the initial design, but simultaneously seeing 5 steps ahead like a good chess player. It's got to be planned out. Because I'll give you a case where the same thing kind of happened, but then trailed off at the end, but to a lesser extent, but it did impact the excitement. And that is X-Transbot Stunticons. Came out swinging for the fences. Another release, another release, another release, consistent releases. But then there was a lapse before we got the final component, which was the trailer and then the upgrades and all that. And I think the fact that that was the final release, coupled with the fact that it had been some time, it affects the way that people perceive it. I think that people are more excited, not to say that they weren't excited at all, because we're talking about a middle ground project, right? But I think people would have been even more excited had that been shown right on the heels of, Gravestone, right on the heels of their Motormaster. But we had to wait a little bit. Not long enough to lose interest, but long enough where it didn't have the same impact. So I want to talk about a few releases right now that I think are having huge momentum, maybe not huge, significant to huge momentum issues. We have to start, of course, with Fans Toys and their dead end, right? Now, rumor has it we're going to get some news about this in a matter of days. Knowing my luck, it happened 10 seconds before this video went up, and I'll get 10,000 comments telling me that I was wrong and that the images went up. But while I have locked on to this dead end and this Minosaur and the aerial bots as well, like an angry pit bull on a tied up piece of rope in the backyard, many have already let it go. Many are already excited about the Fort Max, they're excited about the this one and the that one, and they're kind of already off of the excitement of the dead end. I've locked in, and I refuse to let it go. But in many ways, I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle. What I find interesting about the Fans Toy situation is how forgiving people have been about it. But needless to say, I think it's quite obvious that at minimum, the excitement level for a Minosaur from Fans Toys has changed. If when that Minosaur was announced, people were at a 100, they're no longer, I don't even think in the 90s or 80s about it. I think they're probably more excited about the Fort Max situation, which is getting new reveals and new news and new rumors circulating around it like crazy. The Fort Max now has the momentum, and that momentum is generating interest from the consumers. In fact, it's becoming part of the rollout, and they're using it to their advantage, which is smart. It's the way it should be. But at the same time, they're losing the momentum with their Stunticons. Ironically, you might say. I'm going to give you another one. The MMC tapes. When that Ravage came out, people were like, oh my God. Can you imagine if we could get them all at this level? And then the Birds came out and lost a little momentum because that wasn't really what people wanted. And then Rumble and Frenzy came out. And then people got excited again about the Autobots. Then they teased the Autobots. And now it's been years since that. And if you know me, then you know that I'm still excited about them. But that being said, I can't deny that my excitement probably isn't the same as the general fandom because it doesn't have the same momentum that it initially had, thus impacting, potentially, the sales element. Now, there is a flip side to this, right? There is a absence makes the heart grow fonder type of situation, where something can kind of go out of circulation for so long that by the time it comes back, now it has more momentum than it ever had. There's a reason why Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and Episode 7, The Force Awakens, are the best performing of their trilogies. It's because the absence of product, the absence of media, the absence of the franchise, that it generates excitement. So there is an inverse to that, and don't think I'm not aware of it. But even with that, if you look at the Lord of the Rings that put out a movie every year, or maybe the Marvel movies where they come out 3-4 a year, it's able to sustain this momentum. And it does have an impact on the success of the franchise. And of course you get oversaturated as well, right? So it's all about finding that balance. But while we're talking about finding the balance and giving examples, let's give arguably the most prominent example of the worst loss in momentum, at least that I can recall in recent years, and that would 100% be Generation Toys defensor. When this product hit, it had a fair amount of momentum coming off the heels of all of their other combiners. It's in line. Aesthetically, it fits the cues. They make a pretty good product. They have a solid reputation. And over time, the releases become more and more spread out, to the point that people got so disenfranchised by the lack of hotspot that many exited the team El Total. It lost 100% of momentum. One reason being the length of time between releases. The second reason being that over that length of time, other defensors become announced. Perhaps that might fit more in line with what people want. I'm not saying that's a fact, but I'm saying it could be a fact. Even if you were in for that scale specifically, I'm sure when that MMC got announced, it made some sort of an impact in the way people see it. It's almost like you have to be committed to the aesthetic cue to really be in on it, which I totally understand because I think it looks cool. But at minimum, I don't think there's a person out there that would wager that the amount of excitement regarding the hotspot is anywhere close to the amount of excitement that the team had when it was initially announced. And the reason for that is momentum, and subsequently, the loss thereof. The impact and the reasons why it lost momentum vary piece to piece, right? But in that specific circumstance, time between releases and other competitive products being announced. So that's really it in a nutshell. But I can go on and on. I mean, I think that even if Make Toys came out of retirement right now, I mean, I know they're making Seekers, but you know what I mean, and announced that they're working on the other Headmasters, like, I think people will be excited. I just don't think people will be as excited as back when they were releasing them consecutively and consistently, because it's lost the momentum. And we see this time and time again with pieces, specifically when it relates to teams or sort of units within the crews. Even the time that was spent between the two big bots from the DJD, I think had an impact on the success of that team overall. And that's a great set of figures from MMC. So just something that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. I don't think a lot of people are even thinking about. I'm not even sure if I had given it a whole lot of thought before I had this conversation on Patreon. But something that I think that we should consider in regard to the marketing success and rollout of this stuff and how much it actually matters. And it doesn't pertain just to third party, right? I mean, you can see it across the board with everything. The Star Wars movies, the Marvel movies, et cetera, et cetera. And I think you can make an argument about oversaturation with the Marvel stuff now, but I'll leave that for a Nerd Rage conversation. Doctor Strange 2 should have been called Random Things Happening to Characters You Don't Care About. Anyway, I digress. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to drop other examples in the comments about, you know, teams or situations that may have lost momentum, or the opposite, where the momentum kind of fed the excitement. I remember, to get back on the other side of the DJD, in the beginning when they were a little bit more consistent with the releases regarding them, that people that hadn't even read the comics or anything just started getting excited about it because the momentum was building up. The snowball was building as it was heading down the mountain. So it definitely exists to the extreme in the other circumstance. Anyway, something to chew on. I'll be back Monday. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.